between the current world champion against the former world chess champion. Still sounds so weird, but that's the case.
Yeah, I hope everyone at home is as hyped as we are. And we get the handshake. We are off. Armageddon time. We're going to get a winner.
Here we go. Armageddon action. I think that's C4 on move 1 with E5 and G3. If I'm reading, yes, I am, the board correctly. And H6, that's a flexible move we talk about. Kind of a fun little way to get your opponent out of prep. And just like that, getting a little bit of time off of that precious clock if you're Magnus.
And the time is so important. There is no increment until move 41. So Liren has 10 minutes, Magnus Carlsen 7 minutes, and White needs to win. In case of a draw, it counts as a victory for Black. That's what the Armageddon format is about. There is going to be a winner.
Break it down for us, David. What do we got here in the opening?
Yeah, we get what I call a reverse Sicilian. It started with the English opening, but whoa, Magnus doing some weird stuff, and this bishop's just moved for a second time. I was going to say, Danny, your H6 move, the one you mentioned, it's nice, it's flexible. Magnus has actually played it before very recently in the Grand Chess Tour, so a bit odd to see Ding pause there, but even more odd is this last move, moving a piece twice in the opening with Black, breaking all the rules here.
We've talked about this, with Magnus so much in his career that he had this reputation early on, David, as like, he just wants to take you into the dark forest and avoid prep. And I remember Fabiano said, and many have backed this up, they underestimate how well prepared you have to be to do that, to choose dubious moves that are not very well known, where you know you're not giving your opponent a crazy edge. And look at that. It's not that big of an edge for White. Probably it's as big of an edge for White as a mainline English. But what did he do, Anna? He got almost a minute off of Ding's clock. That's the kind of practical stuff that favors Magnus a lot in these types of tiebreaks.
I fully agree with you. It's a great choice for Armageddon. He's going for not the best moves as per, I guess, engine definition, but very practical decision, very practical for what the Armageddon format is about. And chipping away a minute is huge when you start with 3 minutes less on the clock.
But David, I can see you itching to show what Ding is doing with King H2, maybe preparing F4. At least going for an aggressive line is in store here, right? F4, maybe the knight comes to D5. If you're Ding Liren, let's go, right? Let's get aggressive.
Exactly. This is a dream start in a must-win situation for Ding, and there we go. F4 for the score, as they say. And I mean, I'm going to drop an emoji here just because this game is heating up right now.
Whoa!
And
F4 is hype. I agree. F4 for the score. Shout out to Canty.
Exactly. Just keep going. F5. There we go. Ding. He's doing what he needs to do. You have White. You have more time. You've got to put the opponent under pressure. Got to ask the opponent what they're doing. What's the Black King going to do, Anna, here? Magnus has one good piece, but do you think that's enough to keep the position, the knight on D4? I'm
starting to like this a lot for Ding Liren because, yes, he is in a must-win situation with the white pieces in an Armageddon, but this is the type of position you want in a must-win situation. It's complex. You've got the advantage. You can start throwing pawns against the opponent's king. I don't think Magnus will castle kingside. That seems like it would be suicidal with the pawn being pushed to f6 and also g4, g5 in the air. But if he cannot castle kingside, as you mentioned, David, what is he gonna do with his king? Danny, is the king gonna stay in the middle of the board?
Or maybe, try to get it to the queen side if you can. There we go. Well, the board's moving over in real time. It's magic. Welcome to the Chess.com broadcast here. We get the board on the right side so that we can keep everything in clear view. And I think castling short is off the agenda, right, David? If you castle short right now, especially, Ding throws f6 and asks questions later, right? The whole king side blows open. But if you maintain the flexibility, probably the knight comes to d5. And one of the things about this pawn structure, I feel like we were just talking about this in one of the Champions Chess Tour events, the c4, d3, e4 structure, well, highlighted, that is the Botvinnik English, and it gives you flexibility, not just for the king side, you see that spearhead pawn on f5, but if we get a knight to d5, there's a3, there's b4, there's rook b1. When you have that type of anchor in the center, you get a lot of options. And so I actually really love Ding Liren's chances here in an Armageddon game where he has to win.
He has slowed down. He has frozen. He spent, a minute and a half or so on this one move, and you cannot really afford that luxury. He's choosing a plan, as Danny, as you mentioned there. He's really flexible. He goes for rook b1. That's kind of tried and tested method here. But what is Magnus going to do? Continue to develop.
Bishop to d7 immediately. He is developing on the queen side, and b3 by Ding Liren. I think he's playing too slow. I agree with you guys that he needs to speed up. His time advantage is evaporating, and it's crucial in Armageddon that you try to keep that time advantage as white. It's hard to switch. They've just played a classical game, and now they are playing a lot faster time control. It's not an easy thing to do with just a 10-minute break, but they know that that's the format, and they both have played here before many, many times.
I love what you just highlighted, David, too, with B3 was played by Ding because A3 would have been met by A4. Just a sneaky, fun thing for just how advanced the little maneuvers, the footwork was by those two players on the queen side. But Magnus strikes with B5 because he says, I'm going to get aggressive here before you have a chance to do your knight D5, A3, B4, Botvinnik English structure I talked about.
Yeah, and now the kind of Magnus is saying a lot with this last move. He's saying the black king is never going queenside either. So it's either going to have to castle into the line of fire a bit later on, or he's going to try and stay as flexible as possible for the near future. And here we go. Ding goes for it. I love it. Attacking move. He was attacking the G7 square, duly defended by Magnus. And if he can keep the threats coming, then I really fancy Ding. But the clocks are nearly leveled out. And yeah, Magnus, again, he's asking these difficult, unorthodox questions every single turn.
He is, and he doesn't mind that he has lost the right to castle. He moved his king to defend the pawn on G7, meaning that his H8 rook will be stuck in the corner for a while. But it is such a complex position, and the only side of the board where there's some immediate action is the queen side.
Totally agree. Notice the shuffle of the queen because you want to unpin that pawn on F5. And I was going to highlight, Ding Liren was threatening F6 because of the bishop and the queen ganging up on that H6 pawn. Magnus says, no soup for you, my friend. I'm going to stop that F pawn where it stands. And back to Anna's point, if the king side really is going to be this deadlock, David, then the queen side is going to be where all the action is.
Yeah, that's right. And that's where Magnus, as you mentioned, got the head start first, pawn on B5. So yeah, suddenly this beautiful black knight on D4, you really want to remove it. And Ding goes the whole way back with his queen. Indecision here, he's lost his time advantage. It's just a pure blitz game.
Pure blitz game, it's completely even, the time situation. A 3-minute time advantage completely gone. Danny, what do you think about this queen move back to D1?
I was going to say it's a pure blitz game. But black has draw odds. So we're right. Yes, it's a pure blitz game, but let's not forget, it's not a pure blitz game. It is Armageddon and Magnus Carlsen. But I was about to say that because look at B4, David. We're playing checkers now. Yeah. Now it's not an insult, it's a compliment. He is closing up the board. This is a checker structure, and Magnus is going to be like, where's the breakthrough, buddy? Draw.
Yeah, white's pawns are all on light squares. You don't control the dark squares. As long as Magnus's king never kind of finds itself in any danger, Magnus has got this in the bag. I would actually take this knight off the board. It's a block position. Knights are better than bishops. And then you can almost guarantee a dark squared bind for the rest of the game, Danny.
Anna, if black takes he doesn't. Wow, I'm surprised.
Back to A7. I was thinking of bishop takes A4, but Magnus prefers to keep the bishops on the board. Maybe his thinking is, I can take the knight on A4 anytime, and that knight on A4 is not doing much. It doesn't have where to go, and if you need to maneuver it somewhere, it can only move to B2, which is a lot worse of a position for the knight. It's going to be very hard for Ding Liren in a must-win situation. His only pawn break would be to try to push G5, G4, H4, G5 somehow in the right moment.
But I think that's a great plan to highlight because we shouldn't make this, all a one-sided affair. And Ding Liren hears you. Just kidding. He doesn't actually hear Anna downstairs. We are soundproof. But G4, H4, G5, that is really the only plan, David, unless we're missing something. You're all in on the king side if you're Ding Liren here.
Yeah, and this one, I mean, if it were just a normal game, you could imagine it going 50 moves before the next big pawn break, a lot of maneuvering. But here we go. Magnus is just trying to block up. He's blocked the whole center now, the whole queen side. It's a one-track mind, and cemento, as Peter Lecco would say.
All the white pawns were on white squares, and all the black pawns were on dark squares. King to E7, the delayed pawn cloud is on the board, and the king is running to the queen side.
It's a deadlock position, like I said. We play in checkers. We ain't playing chess here. And in this case, it's actually a compliment to Magnus Carlsen's approach. His sort of devious little tricky opening that we talked about earlier. Now it's in the rear view, getting a deadlock spot where, I mean, look, black is in control in many ways of that breakthrough because when G5 happens, black gets the choice to take first, right? And we always talk about that. Whoever controls the breakthroughs kind of controls what you can prepare behind it. And so black is ready if G5 comes. He'll take with the H-pawn, open the H-file first. In the meantime, he's just going to maybe double and coordinate rooks. And I don't want to call GG yet, but I think Magnus Carlsen is about to get an Armageddon victory here.
It seems to be the case that Magnus has everything under control and even a slight time advantage. So very tough situation for Ding Liren, who has to win this game because of the Armageddon format. There is no way that draw gives him anything. The draw is a win for black.
Yeah, and normally we would advocate flagging here. It might be his best bet, but they get increment very shortly, so that could be a key factor. I actually think White's king at some point will just journey its way over to the very safe b3 square before deciding whether to break open the king side.
Oh, that's a lovely square for the king. It's like it's right there reserved for the king on b3 because the pawn is missing from there.
I love it. Why not? Why not? Just do it. Let's. Before you take a draw, Ding, please get the king to b3. I mean, the people want it.
People want it.
But okay, are we calling it too soon? We've complimented a very.
He's doing the king run.
He is doing the king run, but as I said, you control the first capture, which means you double and you build up the space behind that capture. Magnus indeed doubles rooks. This is a bit of a clinic. He's gone to Shuffletown.
Yeah, look at the kings just dancing there. How to improve the position? It looks impossible almost. Ding, he's got to try and play g5 at some point. But when Magnus has 3 minutes left, it looks almost just forlorn here. It looks hopeless almost.
Yeah, but he will have to try because whether he makes a draw or loses, it's the same result for him. So I agree with all of you saying in the chat that he will make a break at some point, even if it's not a good move, but he's going to have to try something, anything, because he may as well resign if he doesn't. It's the same result.
That's true. It's not rated, no difference in prize money, anything. So it's pretty much play g5 or go home for Ding at this point.
Well, and he will play g5 at some point because you can't hop a flight to China that fast. You can't go home that fast. No, kidding. But no, there's nothing to do here. There's only one breakthrough that matters. Magnus has doubled rooks, waiting for an H-file to explode on. Every one of the towers will disappear. We'll have a queen ending, and objectively, black might be the one playing for a win there at the end of that exchange if you end up winning the g5 pawn.
Yeah. What to do when you've got no time as well and you need to conjure up a miracle plan from nothing? He's reliant on a blunder, Magnus to put the black queen on a bad square maybe, but I don't see any way. I don't see any way to mess this up for black right now.
Yeah, our viewers are very right about how the lack of minor pieces is felt in this position, especially the lack of knights. You wish you had a knight that could jump to d5 or even maneuver there, even if it was really far, but some kind of a plan with only heavy pieces on the board and g5 being the only breakthrough, for which Magnus is more than ready. This is heading toward the draw, but I do think Ding will push g5. It's just a matter of when is he going to do it.
Now. Do it now.
I wanted to throw out, I'm just trying to have fun here. Let's get creative. We got nowhere else to go. It's Armageddon. We're in Norway. We might as well have a party. If White could play a3 in some funny position, just to highlight real quick, and then you take. If you take it, White takes with the king and the b file's open. We have chances. And then when you take, if you take with the a pawn, maybe then I sacrifice the a pawn. Right? And if you take it again, obviously I would swing everything to the a-file, so that's not going to happen. I was imagining if that's the case, and Magnus did have the queen on the wrong square, David, you take on b4 with the a-pawn, c takes, and then you sacrifice maybe d4 or c5. Obviously it shouldn't work, but I'm like, does Ding is not, it's not like he's just sitting there for the cameras, right? He's going to try something. So maybe this a3 at some point will get played, try to mix things up on both sides of the board before g5 is on the agenda.
Yeah, I like it. Play on both flanks, even just to try and confuse Magnus. It might not change the result, but yeah, he's just repeating pretty much here, Ding. His rooks were earlier on the H-file. They're back there now. Okay, Magnus under 2 minutes. Oh, predictions. Surely a draw now.
It's heading toward a draw, but because of what we mentioned, that for Ding Liren, draw or losing the game is the same result due to the Armageddon, he will definitely try something. He has to. This is already move 44, so we need to mention that there is already an increment. Flagging, therefore, is not really an option. There's a 10-second increment per move, if I'm correct. And queen to g3, again...
I think in the Armageddon, it's 3 plus 2. Right? Or no? What is it? No, sorry, it's not 3 plus 2. I was thinking of the tiebreaker at the end of the event. We'll talk about that later if we get to tiebreaks. I think it's only a 1 second increment.
Only
in
1
the
second.
Armageddon, it's only 1 second.
I'm confusing it with the classical, where it's a 10-second.
Apologies. We should explain that to the fans, because if we're getting confused, it could probably use an explainer.
So
Remember, 10 seconds added after move 40, starting with move 41 in Classical, only a 1 second increment in Armageddon. And if we should reach tiebreakers at the end of this whole event, Blitz tiebreaker will get it done. We'll talk about that later. All right.
Suddenly Magnus slowed down. He spent 45 seconds on that one move.
Yeah.
And maybe he was afraid of some d4 ideas, or I don't really see what he's afraid of. But I also want to mention...
G5.
Okay.
Sorry, David, I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's on the board.
Yeah, finally. I was going to say, we've had 21 moves since the last pawn push, so time was running out slowly. 50 move rule would have kicked into effect at some point, so G5, like you said, Anna. Finally, it's happening.
For those wondering, Liren and Magnus Carlsen have not gone full thinking, man. The cameras are frozen. We are working on it. We're aware, fans at home. Just imagine what they could be thinking about in that position. But no, we will get those cameras back online in just a second, and we're going to keep it right here. In the meantime, as you said, G5.
And this could be a simpler queen endgame once the rooks are exchanged, and white will take the pawn back on G5.
But like I said, if this happens, if anyone has an edge, it's black. And notice that Magnus has the king on A6, which is smart because it allows moves like queen H3, I think. Okay, even better. Queen H1 threatens mate, by the way. Queen to B1 is a problem.
Wow. And Magnus actually spent 45 seconds, we mentioned earlier, putting the king on A6. So he'd seen this a mile off, and white's queen does not deliver any checks. White king has to step back, but this is bad news. Very minimum black's going to get a repetition here, surely, but he might even just pick up all of white's pawns in the process. You mentioned checkers. He's going to win them all in one go.
Oh, God. All of them are falling.
I love how you highlighted the Magnus with the king on A6. Just highlight that real quick and the queen on D8 to show. The king on A6 means that when that queen came in, everyone, there was no check. That is foresight. That is called thinking ahead. And that's what Magnus Carlsen does. You have the vision to anticipate what could go wrong even before it does. He should take a draw here. He can. But no, he's just going to gobble all the pawns. And Magnus Carlsen gets an Armageddon victory.
Yep, he's on the brink now, and wow.
He doesn't want to repeat.
He wants more.
He brings the queen back. Again, a draw or a win is the same result for Magnus in the Armageddon, but a win is sweeter. A win is a good start to the Norway Chess 2024 event. Could be a much better start and more confidence for him, especially after last year's event. Let's see if he's just going to push and try to win this all the way, or will he repeat here?
Well, I think Liren secured the draw. He doesn't want to allow queen b5 check by Ding next, and then the a5 pawn would fall with check, by the way. So Magnus says, okay, I did my job. Took the half point, and that means Magnus Carlsen will have 1.5 points in the standings, everyone. Liren will have 1. That is what Armageddon gets you.